What's up guys, Shane here from Fugatech 3D Printing, and today we're talking about tools. Welcome back guys. So here I have a plethora of the tools that I use in my day-to-day when building 3D printers. And as you've watched any of my live streams, you'll notice I do a lot of that lately. Pretty much all custom builds is what I'm working on lately. And every single thing here is used in some way, shape, or form in those builds. So what I thought I would do today is I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to outline, for those of you who are new to 3D printing or think about getting into it, what are, in my opinion, the bare essential tools that you should have to use your 3D printer, maintain it, and create things to 3D print. I'm going to give you that short list there. Then if you're the next group and you have a 3D printer and you're thinking about doing a BLV or a Volron or a Hypercube or any other type of more DIY type of 3D printer where you're buying the parts, 3D printing everything yourself to make your printer, I've got a more extensive list for you. And then right in the middle, I printed this in the middle then, but anyways, right in the middle, I'm going to put, if you want to take your 3D printer to the next level, which that also kind of ties in with the build it yourself type of thing, but like if you want to enhance the safety of your machine, or if you want to be able to more easily work on it, things like that. Some more nice to haves is kind of what's in that category. But first off, we're going to say a big thank you to Aaron, who actually sent me some of the tools here because he was bugging me so bad that I didn't have a pair of Lyman pliers or these awesome drivers that he uses all the time. He was bugging me that I didn't have any, so he decided to send me a care package with those. So big thanks to Aaron for helping me out with some of my tool collection. Before I do get in the list, I will say this has taken me years to buy, literally years. Like, you don't need to go out to Home Depot or whatever or even go to Harbor Freight and buy everything here at once. No, not at all. You kind of got to work your way up, and that is kind of my biggest thing. Is I don't want anybody to think like, oh, I have to have this to do what I do. No, you don't. I've made my way for years without most of this, but now as years go on, you know, I'm now no longer using the tools that my dad gave me. I'm now buying my own tools. So that's kind of where everybody starts. I think most people would start is, you know, tools from their parents or their grandparents, what they start with. I still have my first hammer. It was ever new my grandfather. Sits in my toolbox. Not have that one out today, but I still have that little old wooden hammer that I use all the time. So let's get into the first list of, if you're new to 3D printing, what do you need? So the first thing I'm going to say to you is you need one of these. They're like a smoothing tool for like clay work, but this is my absolute go-to for getting a print off of your build plate. Now if you have a flex build plate, this isn't as necessary. It is still really nice to have if you get something that's real stuck on there, but to kind of put it on there and push and get that last little filament off your build plate, or if you're using a build tack or a faux tack type of material where it really sticks to it, you can't flex it off, you need something to get under there. A lot of printers come with those real cheap, squared off, very sharp putty knives basically. Don't use those. Throw those in the trash. Spend a few bucks on Amazon, pick one of these up. I also have a long one here that works for more longer prints, but I use this to get under it, use this to get under it even more, go around it, print pops right off, you get a nice bottom, you don't damage your build surface, and I mean, who really wants to replace their build surface because you gouged it up with your putty knife? So this is definitely one that I think everyone should have. Another tool that everyone should have is a deburring tool. So this is made for once you actually have a part and you need to take off a little bit of that elephant's foot on the bottom, you can use this, hold it along, pull there, and be able to get off that little bit of filament that's on there, get a nice bottom to it, or if you have any sharp edges on something that you created, you can use this to get off that last little bit. So a deburring tool, definitely good to have around. Pair of tweezers, very useful if you want to get the boogers off of your nozzle, or if you just need to kind of grab at something small. You don't want to put your fingers near your nozzle. It's 200 centigrade, it's really hot. So don't do that. Use a pair of tweezers. I have these, and I also have a spring-loaded pair here as well. They both do the same job. You know, I think these ones I got a few pack on Banggood for like $8 or $2, something like that. I don't know. They were cheap. and they do the job. They don't need to be anything special. And again, you're just using that to kind of get those little wisps of things, or if you have something that falls in somewhere, you need to get to it. A pair of tweezers goes a really long way, so definitely need to have some of these. For the absolute beginner, if you bought a 3D printer, most likely it came with that putty knife that I told you to throw away, and some Allen wrenches. The Allen wrench is actually usually pretty good, but if you want to get a full set, I have a set from Harbor Freight. I don't really use it much anymore because I have some other tools here that I use more often, but having a full set of Allen wrenches, definitely good to have. These ones are metric. I also have a standard set, it's just red, but you're gonna want metric for 3D printing. This is only a few bucks at Harbor Freight. You can get them cheap pretty much anywhere, but again, they come with your printer. So whatever you need to actually work on that printer, it's gonna come with it. But I would recommend picking up a full set if you want to take it to the next level. In that same vein, something else that comes with your printer is probably going to be some of these wrenches. Now I have a whole little bucket here full of them with all sorts of different ones, and they have all different sizes for different reasons. Some are for eccentric nuts, some are for just M4 or M5 nuts. Some of them are specifically for nozzles. So I have a 7mm here. And I also have one of my printers came with a socket driver, which is really cool. I use these ones all the time, mainly this one here. You can also get like the T-handle tool from E3D, which is basically, I think it's from RC, is actually what it's from. They just charge a little more for it. But these come with your printer, so you don't really have to go out and buy these. But if you do want one, having a little 7mm hex driver like this, a little socket, will definitely help make it easier to take those nozzles off. A lot of printers will also come with an extra large wrench, which actually can be fit onto your heater block. And you're going to want to hold that heater block as you're using the wrench to take your nozzle off. If you don't have one of those, a very simple and cheap little thing is getting a very small crescent wrench from, again, Harbor Freight. This is as cheap comes. It's dinged up and whatever, but I use this to hold my various size of heater blocks as I'm using the wrench to take my nozzle off. It's just quick and easy because it's a crescent wrench, and I have these. Don't really ever use them except for ones for nozzles, but again, it comes with your printer. You might get one with it, you might not, depends on the vendor, but having a little crescent wrench definitely helps out. Another thing might come with your printer. So a lot of these, depending on the printer you do get a lot of tools with it, which is great. But if you don't have one, you're going to want a pair of flush cutters. Again, very cheap online if you need to buy one, but if you're buying like a Crowdy printer or something like that, they come with them. I have, I think, like 7 or 8 pair of these hanging around now. I have them all over the shop because I use them all the time, but they come with many of my printers. But you're definitely going to make sure that you have a pair of flush cutters. Also kind of like a base essential, if you're going to be printing items and they're going to have support or things like that, you're going to want some tools to be able to take that support off. One of the easiest things to use is a pair of needle nose pliers. Again, these came with one of my printers. I believe someone said these are actually the Prusa pliers. I don't remember. I have 2 of them. I got them in 2 printers. Don't know where I got them from, but these work out really, really well, and these will be essential for taking support off of those hard to reach areas in your prints. You can't always have support just fall right off magically. Sometimes you got to get in there and really grab at it, and having a pair of needle nose pliers, a little pair, is good to have. Also for support is having some type of pick. Now, I don't know where I got this one, had it for a very, very long time, and it works out well, but actually Aaron gave me a recommendation of a set that he uses on Amazon, which I will be buying that probably shortly to add to my collection, because he said it's a little bit thicker than this. This one kind of bends on me, but this is for those really, really hard to reach corners where support happen to get in there. You just can't really get in there with the needle nose pliers or anything else. These little picks really do help out with that. I'd say the final thing you need for cleaning up a print or cleaning up your supports is going to be an Exacto knife of some sort. So this, again, Harbor Freight special. I've had this for years. I do need to replace my blades on these because this one has seen some far better days. But you get a full set for only a few bucks. I did originally have my set that my dad got me for Boy Scouts back when I was a kid. One of the wooden box ones. For any of you millennials out there that did Boy Scouts, you're going to know what I mean, or even older than that. You'll know exactly what I mean by the little wooden Exacto knife box set. Had that for a long time. Had this one for a long time now too. They work. You just need to buy replacement blades. But these are going to be essential for cleaning up any prints, cutting anything off. I've actually had some burrs on prints, or some you just need to kind of shave a little bit, just get it fitted just a little bit more. You have a big variety of blades in here, so I definitely recommend having some sort of Exacto knife set. Now I would say if you just want to work on a 3D printer, or you have some that you need to have, half of that stuff comes with your printer depending on what you buy, so you're only out a couple bucks to buy these few things. Literally 20 bucks and you have everything I have there if you make a trip to Harbor Freight. Even less if you can pick up at a flea market or something like that. A lot of my tools originally came from there as well. So those are kind of the things that I think are absolutely essential to have if you're going to own a 3D printer and want to work on it. That's the things you need. Now I also did not consider any consumables. I'm not considering those tools, grease, and things like that. And blue shop towels. I don't consider those as tools. They're definitely good to have, but for any of that stuff, I'll put a separate list down below if you guys want to check those things out. And the final thing we're talking about of an absolute essential to have is going to be a set of calipers. So if you want to make anything with your 3D printer, the easiest thing to do to learn how to design something is to clone something that you already have laying around. So for example, on my table here, let's just take this spool of solder, which we'll get to in a minute. I want to clone this. I'm going to use these calipers to measure this and put that into Fusion and actually make this object in Fusion. So having calipers and being able to take accurate measurements is the absolute necessary if you want to be able to design things from the real world, or you've got something to fix, the wife needs you to fix something, the husband needs you to fix something, you want to be able to do it, use a pair of calipers. So now let's go to the second group. You have a 3D printer, you want to do some upgrades with it, or you want to print a little more advanced things with it. So I would say now that you're going to have that, you're going to be adding or removing things more often, I would say pick yourself up a decent driver kit like a Weha set. Now these can be a little bit on the pricey side. Just for the 5 set of drivers alone is about $22. Good Mother's Day, Father's Day, stocking stuffer type of gift. I definitely would do that, but I have that set. I have a 4 set of Phillips heads, and I have a 4 set of flat heads, which actually broke this little one somehow. I need to replace that one. But yeah, definitely having a good little set like this definitely goes a long way. You can reach in better, and I just think these are kind of essential for this next tier of maker. Next, I would say you're probably going to need some crimpers. So if you're going to go ahead and start making your own cables, or if you want to secure your print a little bit better by adding wire ferrules to the ends of all the wires going into those crimped down type connectors, you're going to need a few different crimpers. So for the ferrules, you can get a kit off Amazon like this. Has lots of different colors, lots of different size ferrules, and it has a ferrule crimper. They are different. I actually have 3 different crimpers that I normally use. We're only talking about 2 of them. One's for computer modding. But you're definitely going to want some ferrules and a crimper for them. About 20 bucks. This is going to last you forever. Like literally, I highly doubt in the time I ever work on 3D printers, if I ever need to buy more ferrules, I'll be shocked, because I've done it on all my machines and I've still barely made a dent into this. You know, maybe the smallest ones you'll need to do, but honestly, I highly doubt the average person will go through more than just this. Next one's kind of a 2-for-1. So we have JST connectors and we have Dupont connectors. Both of those can use the same crimper. So this is a 3-step crimper, ratcheting, so you kind of can hold in your crimp and go from there. Someone did suggest that I make a video on it. If you'd like to see that, leave me a comment down below. I might have already made it by the time I made this though, but maybe I'll do a quick little video on how to use a crimper, because I use this all the freaking time. If you watch my streams, I'm building printers. I'm constantly making my own cables and making custom length ones. It is awesome to kind of have a cleaner setup, but if I want to just add a fan, add a cable to it, change the connector on it, whatever you need. But Dupont and JST will both go hand in hand with this crimper. Working our way through the table here. Next thing I would say, also a type of crimper, is going to be some insulated terminals. So if you have just bare wire being crimped down on your power supply, nowadays it's less likely to happen, but if you want to add something that's running straight off of the 12 or 24 volt power supply, you should still crimp it and use an insulated terminal for it. Or if you're going to add a power switch to a printer that doesn't have a power switch, or you notice it doesn't have insulated terminals on it, picking up a set like this with the crimper, again, it's about $20–25 on Amazon. I don't think it's more than that. There are more connectors in here than you will ever need, but you never know, you might need it for a project at home. And what better way to start than working on your 3D printer and adding things to it, having a good set, not even a good set, but having a crimper. This is like super cheap. Like again, these terminals, insulated terminals, they meet standard. They don't need to be anything crazy, but this definitely will help you get through there. This also does have a wire stripper capability to it, so you don't need an automatic wire stripper. I'm going to talk about next. You could use this, but either way, this is what you're going to need for insulated terminals. As I just brought it up, a pair of automatic wire strippers. Very quick and easy. This is kind of at the edge of the advanced kind of working on your 3D printer to like building your own 3D printers. We're kind of skating that right there, but I really do enjoy these. These have a cutter and a stripper on them. You kind of just put on your wire, go quickly about it. I found this use for many different wires, even doing things at home and working on my 3D printers. It's good for basically all gauges up till like probably like 8 or 10 gauge. I'd say you probably could easily still do this with. So highly doubt any of you are going to be working on something that big. You'll be using something more professional, but either way, a simple pair of automatic wire strippers work great. Now, also for the more advanced, I would say some pliers. So I do have this adjustable set that I use quite frequently on various things that I need to hold it still, where the Crescent Wrench just doesn't have obviously any holding force. It's more of just stopping something from rotating. If I need to hold something, I'm going to use these just basic pliers, basically what I'm going to use that for. Or you have the pair of lineman pliers. This is the Electrician's hammer. It is the everything tool. It's lineman pliers. You use these for literally everything. For me, I usually cut down M3 bolts, but they're definitely good to have around your house, even if you're not using it on your 3D printer. But for me, again, it's mainly cutting those down, but cutting larger wires, hammering something in. This is the wireman's or the electrician's hammer if they need it for something. It's so versatile to have. Again, this is one of the more advanced items to have of this center section, but definitely worthwhile to have in your toolbox. And finally, the one thing I would say is to have a small little metal ruler. So I don't know honestly where I got this from, but it came from something, and this has been a lifesaver for me to have a small metal ruler. This only goes up to 15 centimeters or 6 inches is all this goes, but I use this all the freaking time when I am cutting something. I need a little mini straight edge for my Exacto knife, or I'm just trying to measure something that's a little hard with the calipers, or I'm just trying to judge something more. I use this absolutely all the time. So having a small little ruler like this really does help out. When you're going to get into the more advanced where you're doing your DIY builds, this is absolutely unnecessary to have. And the absolute last thing I would say for the advanced, working on your printer, adding things to it, replacing things, it's going to be a soldering iron. This is my Weller soldering iron. I have bought this in 2012 maybe. 2011 maybe, something like that. I think it was 2011 actually. So it's been 10 years now that I've had this soldering iron. It's beat, it's worn, but it does the job. I did have to buy new tips for it because the one was getting a little dull for what I needed, something a little more precise. It was like $7 to buy new tips. You know, this is I think about 50 bucks. So this is a good entry level soldering iron. You don't need anything more crazy than this. This will absolutely do the job. And you can pair this, which I have right here. Forgot I still had this. So this is just a little 3D printed part. Put your wire in two sides to match it together, solder in the middle, you're done. Or if you want to, you can buy a little pair of helping hands. Now this is the probably most basic version of helping hands you could buy. There's also larger ones that have a platform, multiple arms on them. That's not really necessary. Having something to hold the wire that you're gonna actually solder together, because you're gonna splice two wires together. You got a fan die, you're gonna snip it. You either want to crimp on a connector or you're just going to solder it in. Definitely having some type of either 3D printed or mechanical helping hands really does help out. Obviously, it's called helping hand. To go with that soldering iron, don't forget you're going to need a little bit of solder. I got this from my dad 12, 13 years ago when I moved out of the house and moved overseas, and I still have the exact same spool because you use very little bits at a time, and this spool will probably last me through my adulthood and will probably be given to one of my kids at some point when they need solder. You don't need much to do 3D printing. You really don't. A small spool will go a very long way because you're just tinning wires and then putting them together. You don't need much. So having some type of solder to be able to use is good to have. Or I guess it's necessary. All right, we're getting down to the last few things here, which is pretty great. And so the final section we're going to go through is the more advanced builder. So you're going to start building your own 3D printers. You have 3D printers already or one. You're going to start printing your own parts. You're going to start buying extrusion. What tools are you going to need to be able to build your own? Well, this one kind of comes with the caveat of another tool that I have. Now I use this for measuring all of the different panels that I cut by hand or acrylic that I cut to build side panels for my 3D printers. I use this T-square. It has metric and standard on it. You pretty much only use the metric side for 3D printing, obviously. And it's fantastic to have. I also use this to measure all of my extrusion that I cut down, because you've got a nice flat base here. You can set your extrusion there, measure it out, make your mark, and make your cut using a miter saw or chop saw. Now the one that I use it out in my garage area, and that has a metal blade on it for cutting the aluminum extrusion. I cut all my own extrusion because it is so much cheaper and easier to cut your own extrusion. Now you got to be able to measure, so if you're not very good at measuring or math, maybe don't do this. You can get it pre-cut from companies like Ziltech. It's a good company. It's where I buy all my raw extrusion from, cut down myself, but they do custom cuts for you for obviously a cost. I don't want to pay that. So I buy a box of it. I need something to make a printer. I've made most all my printers. I've been cutting myself. It's been very easy to do, but you need a way to measure it, and that's going to be with this T-square. You also could supplement this in for a metric ruler, tape measure, but I don't. Personally, I don't like the jiggly end on the end of tape measures. I find them to be very inaccurate. I want something that is solid, does not move. Personal preference though, I'm sure all the carpenters out there are yelling at me right now, but that's okay. To each their own. I like using this better. All right, so you're building your own frame. What are you going to use to make sure it's square? A teeny tiny little baby Machinist Square. Ended up getting this for myself for Christmas last year, and honestly, a fantastic investment. I used it so often when building my frame. It's kind of like a tool you only need when you're doing that. But it's also really not necessary if you have a square cut frame. So if you know your saw is square, or you bought it from someone that can make a good square cut, having this really doesn't help that much, because they should slot together properly anyways. But it is good reassurance to be able to put this in the corner of your extrusion of your printer and be like, yep, that's square. Down to the wire here for tools. We're going to talk about these two together because they are awesome. An iFixit kit. Now this is the kind of full iFixit kit, not like the big one, but like this is their full kit. I can also do phones and things like that. This is absolutely invaluable because of all the different bits you get. Now you can buy a like 20 or 40 or even 60 bit set off Amazon for only a few bucks, less than $10. This is 60. But you do have kind of the brand name and the quality of bits. They're not going to strip out on you or anything like that. iFixit kits are actually really, really good. Bought this for myself maybe 2 years ago. Use it all the time. I take it with me when I go to work on someone's printer, or they need help with their house fixing something that's small. I use the iFixit kit for all of that, so I do like having this around. The other thing would be a pair of Tecton drivers. Now I will say, a ball head driver is not good in every situation. Sometimes you want a nice, flat, stable hex driver that you can actually grip. I call these dad-sized because Wehas are nice, but they're really small. They're kind of like kid-sized drivers. This is a dad driver. It fits my dad hands. I like it. I can get a good grip down something. Now the problem of that is that you might want to tweak something a little too hard with these, because it's so easy to do that because they're a nice big handle. So be careful when you're cranking down, especially 3D print, like bolts on 3D printed parts, you're going to crack them. Make sure you be careful, but these have been absolutely invaluable. They sit on my table here on my desk every single day. They get used with the Wehas every single day. So again, another big thanks to Aaron for supplying those to me. So I will say I have some of these wire connectors. I think these are called, not pogos, but I forget what they're called, but they kind of have the little ones where you put the wire in, you snap it closed, and you can make a connection. You can add anywhere from one wire to another wire, or you can add one to like 3 or 4 other wires. So you can have supply, one wire coming and supplying 2 or 3 other things with the same voltage, having supplying the same voltage to them. So these have been great. I bought these honestly super duper cheap off AliExpress. They were like $2, I think, with like $1 shipping. But I bought these and a few other different variety ones. But these things are just great for building your own printer. You need to connect a couple different fans together. You've got a few different inputs that you need to have on the same voltage, whatever they are. This is a quick and easy way so that you're not trying to like solder all these things together. You can easily attach them to each other, and also easily, more importantly, take them off. So if a fan dies or something like that, you can easily disconnect it from this connector and it's gone. All right, so we're at my Ryobi set, and I have many Ryobi tools now because they're very affordable, and actually some of these are refurbs that I got out at a supplier. Basically, they get reconditioned ones and they're real cheap. They say recon on them, burned in. This one is an original though, I think. Yeah, this one is not a reconditioned one, but they had it also cheap there for brand new. I get so many comments on this glue gun. It's truly awesome, fully wireless, takes a Ryobi battery in there, lasts quite a long time with these larger batteries, and I use this all the time on 3D printers. If you want to just tack something into place, a little buck converter or a Raspberry Pi module or something like that, you don't want to actually screw it into something, a little tack of hot glue really helps out. If you've got some finicky Dupont connectors that just don't want to stay where they are, little tack of hot glue. Easy to take it off later with a pair of needle nose pliers. You're not going to damage anything as long as you're using a little bit. It's just very, very helpful. And again, with the drill, I'm using a little drill set, which I didn't grab. So I'm using just a cheap metric drill bit set. I've already broken one of the drill bits because I dropped my drill, and drill bits don't like to be dropped onto tile floors, so they broke and not the tile. I guess that's good. So I did replace my 5mm, but this set here goes from 1 all the way up to 10mm. So if you're building a 3D printer, this is the perfect range. You won't really ever need to use the 9, 9.5, and 10. 8mm is going to be crucial because if you're drilling something for a 8mm rod and you need to have a little bit more clearance to it, you can run the 8mm bit through it. Or if you're running 10mm rods, a 10mm bit is also going to work out very well. If you want to countersink something a little bit using these, but I always like to drill out any of the holes that I don't want my screw to bite through. If I'm using an M3, use a 3mm bit so that that screw can just pass through and grip to what it needs to grip into, because if you're going to do anything that's clamping, you want one side to clamp to the other, not thread through it. So it's very, very helpful to have. Use it all the time. I have step down bits, I have reaming bits, I have countersink bits. Those are just things that, again, I've accumulated over the years. But you can do countersink and all kinds of stuff with just a larger bit. Very easy to do. I'm sure there's some maker channels out there that have gone over things like that. But definitely having a drill and a hot glue gun, if you're going to be building your own 3D printers, definitely worthwhile having. And now we're at an empty table. So we've gone through all the tools. There are many more tools that I use, but I kind of felt that these were the essentials that I use nearly on a daily basis when I'm working on printers or building 3D printers. So I do hope that this kind of helps you see what it kind of takes. Not really what it, again, you can do a lot with the little, but this is just what I use, and you can kind of have an idea now of the variety of tools that I've acquired over the years that I use to do things in my shop. I mean, there's things I didn't cover, like these little grabby tools. This came out of my college IT kit that we all got for our hardware class. I use this little thing to pick out little screws if I need to. There's all kinds of little things that you acquire over the years that will be useful for you, but might not be for others. So if you guys have a suggestion of something that I didn't cover in this exhaustive list, or fairly exhaustive list in my opinion, please put a comment down below of what you like to use that I didn't include in here. I'd love to hear from you guys. And this also doesn't cover any of the 3D printed tools that I use. And I think that kind of might be something different. I know that what's his name at Teaching Tech, he recently just did a video on a bunch of 3D printed tools that he has discovered. I don't know if he uses any of them, but he has shown examples of each one of those, how to use them. I have a few that I use around here and there, but not very often. But maybe if you guys like to see something about 3D printed tools, let me know. I can do a video on that. That's going to be it, guys. So I'm sorry this is a little bit of a longer video, but again, hope it gives you an idea of what to look for. If you'd like to pick up any of these tools, I'll put some links down below. Some are affiliate, some are not. So I greatly appreciate you guys using the links that are down there. That helps fund the channel. But if you're curious on pick up any of these, or if you'd like to pick them up, I'll put the links down below for you to have. Thank you guys for watching. It's been a long night. I'm getting tired now. But if you guys want to help support the channel, again, use the affiliate links, become a patron, do any of the donation links down below, buy me a coffee even. I appreciate that. I'll put it towards pizza. I don't drink coffee. Or I'll buy a Pepsi with it. I'll wait for Pepsi to sponsor me. But thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have a good night. Happy printing. I'll see y'all next time.